let's be real. So I had a chance to go through and recap a little bit of my race and with Oceanside, and I won't tell exactly where I am, but folks may be able to figure out eventually. But I wanted to give a couple thoughts to how Oceanside went now that I've had a couple days to kind of ponder about how the performance went. And if there's anything you want to take away from this video, it's that the overall sum was better than the sum of its parts. And I know I've been telling that to quite a few folks, and that still remains true to the couple days after the race. So I'll start off with each of the disciplines and then kind of go through my mindset coming to Frankfurt, which is going to be the next race that I have, although there may be a chance I might sneak another race from there. But to give a little bit of an idea of how the swim went, going into the waves here and just looking at the waves right now and staring into the sunset as well as a ship out in the distance, I would say the swim went fairly well, although I probably could have been a little bit more aggressive, but I really had no idea how the surf was going to play. And for the most part, the surf played out all right, and was able to execute a little bit better on the swim and really go underneath the waves, which was key, although my goggles did pop off on one really big wave at one point in time, and there wasn't really much I could have done about that. But I was able to pop back out and put the goggles back on and continue on my way. And the first 200 meters was more or less the area where I really wanted to focus in on and just kind of get into relative comfort zone. I didn't want to be too aggressive because I knew that I really was focusing in on making sure that this swim was executed well. And I would be glad to say, I mean, under 30 minutes, I could have been probably 27, 28 if I had been a little bit more aggressive. But again, I really wasn't sure how the surf was going to play out, so I was happy with the time. Then got out of the water just under 30 minutes. I think it was like 29:46. I can't remember the exact splits. And then went into T1, and I really wasn't focusing on transitions. And so I had a relatively slow transition. I think even the clock said like 5 minutes, which I know is a slow transition for me. And again, this was something where I really wasn't trying to go super hard or super intensive for it. So the transitions were pretty straightforward, at least T1. And yeah, I could have been a little faster. Actually, it could have been a lot faster, but I didn't really know what my legs were going to give me. So I just kind of took it easy there. And then after T1, then I got onto the bike, had a fairly smooth transition out. I took a gel in transition, and that's where some of the problems started coming. As soon as I was able to get onto the bike, my power pedals weren't working, and I was going purely off of heart rate. So I was having to use my tri-watch to go and see what was my level of effort, and I'm pretty sure I went a little bit harder than I should have at the very beginning part of the race, but I had no idea in terms of, well, I had to go straight on feel, and turns out that I didn't really have bike legs for the day. I was actually pretty angry at myself for that, whereas it took me about 30 minutes to finally get the bike computer and get the power, get those pedals, or in this case, these Vector 3s going, and that was just really frustrating. And to not really know kind of what I was putting out early, and having to really deal with that, having to also deal with my right foot not really clipping in, which for some reason was never an issue for either my road or my tri shoes, and for some reason I was not able to clip in, and that was incredibly frustrating because that's where I get a lot of my power. And So I really didn't have efficient power transfer for the first, I would say, hour of that bike. And I was a little bit mad, not gonna lie. But even all that considered, I would say that the first half of the bike, I would say, was a poor execution, mainly because of all the technical difficulties, but I still had a decent bike time. But I would have loved to have gone sub 2.5 hours if I had better power transfer based off my equipment. But I mean, you have to deal with what you're given, and you can't really I mean, you just have to go and deal with it. And eventually I was able to figure out how to clip in, or at least my right foot finally clipped in. And now at that point it was like mile 27, so this was before Hell Hill, and I was glad I was able to clip in before that, because I was struggling just to get any sort of consistency. And then as soon as Hell Hill went, that's when I started passing people on the bike. And I knew I have climbing prowess, so I used my climbing muscles to pretty good use. I went VO2 max effort up that hill, averaging about 350, 360 watts. With the normalized, I think right around 370 up that climb, which I knew was going to be a hard climb. But I made my move there, and I dropped a lot of people. And then the second half of the course was a totally different story compared to the first half of the course. And yeah, it worked out fairly well for the second half. I mean, the normalized power was a little bit lower than I was hoping for. I think it was only normalized at like 242, which was a little bit shameful. But again, I knew I didn't have equipment working with me, and I just kind of didn't really have bike legs. And I just kind of conserved a little bit, and then I was only really able to put out the power I wanted to probably from mile 53 onwards, which was really weird. So I basically didn't have any bike legs until the very end, which meant a couple of things. Either that my nutrition strategy was relatively good, or I just wasn't going hard enough. And even still a couple days later, I still am not able to fully figure out which one or other causes that didn't allow me to really put out bike power, which again was a little bit frustrating. But I think a little over 2.5 hours, 2 hours 32. I mean, that was better than what I did last year. I think it was a 236 or 237. So I guess I'll take the win as it comes along here. And then going into T2 again, I didn't really rush transitions, and so I kept it pretty steady. And didn't I took a gel in, and then I had to use the porta potty, but then afterwards, I mean, I started out hot, and I was feeling pretty good, but I would say the first 4 miles went very well. It went pretty much to plan, and then I realized my heart rate was starting to creep up a little higher than I was hoping to, and I was a little bit worried about that. So I kind of decided to back off a little, which ultimately ended up being the right choice. But I didn't really feel like I had legs from there. And I mean, I took the nutrition and I felt like puking most of the time, which was really weird. Normally when my training rides and all my going right into the brick running, going hard, I don't feel like puking for some reason. But for some reason this race, it felt really weird, and to say the very least. And yeah, it just was really weird, and I was really worried that I couldn't get any of my nutrition in, but ended up being that I was perfectly fine on the nutrition. And so I took 3 gels, which was what my plan was, and then a little bit of Gatorade, and of course water at every aid station, trying to cool myself off. But I mean, I still had my best run split. A 1 hour 36 half marathon is a PR for me, but I was really hoping personally for like a 134, 133, but well, that legs didn't really happen today. And so altogether the time was like a 4 hours and 48 minutes, which ended up doing, I mean, that is a really good time. I was really happy with that. And that was kind of around where I was thinking I would be. Just how I would get to that time just still befuddles me a little bit. And but I think when it comes down to it, I think the biggest factor of what really didn't happen very well was the sleep quality. And I was talking with a few buddies after the race, kind of to think through it a little bit more, and that's when I realized that, yeah, the quality of sleep for that week was just not good, relatively speaking. It was still having really late night calls, still having a lot of difficulty trying to get into bed, and for the most part just trying to get some quality in me, and I really wasn't able to get the quality that I was hoping for, averaging only about 6.5 hours of sleep a night, which is not ideal for race day, and I was hoping to get like 7.5, 8 hours. And I remember the Thursday night race, or the Thursday night sleep, was good until the alarm set off. And yeah, the alarm set off where I only got 6.5 hours, so I woke up to a fire alarm, which was not ideal, and really couldn't get back to sleep from there. So I would say if there was anything, I wouldn't say that's a root cause, but there is definitely a big factor in terms of the sleep not being very well. So I really got to make sure that I get good quality sleep, not just the few days before, but really the week leading into the race. So yeah, that's kind of how I thought that the race went. I mean, I know I'm pretty hard on myself, and I felt like I could have gone a little bit faster, but kind of where I'm at with training, I mean, I was kind of training through, I mean, I was resting leading up to Oceanside, but I wasn't really tapering or anything. I mean, I still was going hard efforts the week prior, and I still had a track session the week prior. So, but I mean, overall, I would say that Oceanside was a really good learning experience. It was great to see a lot of folks, a lot of people in the Team Zoot gear. I mean, they were literally all over the place, and it was great racing with a lot of the professionals as well, getting to meet them, and more or less, I mean, I just had a good time. And really, I mean, of course, the race itself probably wasn't the best part of it, but it was great to have a lot of ice cream and pizza afterwards. Had my first alcoholic beverages in a very long while, which, I mean, I felt like I needed them after that race for sure. But, well, with that, I'm still in California, but I'm not going to tell exactly where I'm at. But I will say that, yeah, so I'm basically going to go right back into training here in just a few days. And actually tomorrow I'm going to do a long run of 10 miles. So I've got to really get back into it, because Ironman Frankfurt is right around the corner. I mean, we're in the beginning of April, and end of June is, so I really need to start ramping up the overall volume. I've got to get to 20 hours roughly in a week, but that's getting harder and harder with my regular work, and having to deal a lot with work-life balance, even with this race. And I mean, I really wanted to have a little bit of me time for this race, but I really didn't feel like I was able to get it. So, I mean, that's kind of how things roll, and that's the life of an age grouper. But I really can't be mad at myself for this, even though a lot of crap went around, but it was really how I managed to go around it. And I would say, given everything that I've mentioned, I think I handled it fairly well, but there were certainly a lot of things that I could have improved on. But there you go. Well, that's a race recap summary, and hope you enjoyed this. I know I kind of went a little bit on a rant here, but I mean, you can't, I mean, there's just a lot of things. Just knowing me, like, I just have a lot of areas to go and improve on, and I'm one that really is keen on continuous improvement. So So there you go. If you like the video, then go and hit that subscribe button for me. And of course, hit the bell notification for all the updates that I go, or all the videos that I post through. And of course, leave a comment down below. Give your thoughts on how your Oceanside went, if you raced, or what are your other thoughts in the day. And so with that, I'll check in later and talk to you guys soon.